y'all are the future, right? You guys are the ones that are going to be making the change out there. You're the ones that are going to be doing this work. So whatever we can kind of give to you from some of the things that, kind of some of the mistakes we've made, learn from that, take it, run with it. Let me start by saying, and give me a chance to kind of refocus here. Nichochon, Natwani Nedon Rodriguez, Awesh Kumeyaay Kwanea, Nahumfatam Nahinkame, Alicia Rodriguez, Francis Carrillo, Vera Rocha, and Albira Mendibles. So what I said is that I'm very happy and honored to be here. I am Gabrielino Shoshone, which is a non-federally recognized tribe out of the LA area. That's land that we share with the Quiche Nation, the Gabrielino Tongva, the ones with the slash and the ones with the dash, and just the Gabrielino itself. We are a tribal people, talk about tribal politics, who are still trying to figure out how to do what's best for our community. And for me, that was always how to get our children out of child welfare system. So when I was growing up, being the first one to graduate high school and then to go on to college and to go into my master's, I always had the idea of how can I prevent other children from having the same kind of childhood and experiences that I had. Because y'all know about ACEs, yeah? So double-digit ACEs score, yeah, highest score wins kind of thing. Yeah, that's kind of what me and my family had to go through. If there was a child welfare worker that we met, yeah, we would have gone into care, but we were able to avoid them somehow. But it was a question of, well, why are all my cousins in jail? Why are all the men in my family either dead or strung out? And it was something that I wanted to break the cycle of. It's something I knew that I wanted a family someday, and I don't want to have that for my family. So as an undergrad, I started learning about child development and trying to figure out really about who I was and why I'm doing some of the things that I do. Why do I have fits of rage and I start punching holes in the wall because I didn't get my way? So as you're in school, it's a great time to figure out who you are. And it's a great time to utilize all the tools that you have, all the therapy sessions you have, all this group cohesion you've got going on right now, because you're all in the same thing together. You're on the same process. Lean on each other when you're out in the field, because you guys are the ones that know your experience. You might have family and things like that you can share with, but they're not going to know exactly what you're going through, because this job, this social work profession can chew you up. So you got to take care of yourself. You got to really make sure they're doing all that self-care. When you're starting to feel kind of down, it was a tendency for me to kind of reach for a bottle and try to help it that way. Obviously, it does not work. It does not help. So when we're talking about, it's great to have this idea of culture into your practice. How can you get in touch with that? How can you make sure that you're within community? And because, yes, you're social workers, but you're also healers, right? This is heart work, as much as it's you have to do all these paperwork and things. But you're dealing with emotions here. And with tribal children, that's the most precious resource that tribes have. You're talking about spirituality when you're talking about our children. So, when I first got into the social work up in the Bay Area, I moved up there to get my master's, and I was placed in the American Indian Child Resource Center with Mary Trimble Norris, and she'll still tell you that I'm always will be her intern. So I'm intern for Mary Trimble Norris, which was the only Native family foster agency in the state at the time. And I saw firsthand how, as working in that nonprofit, how county child welfare services really took advantage of nonprofits and how they could really railroad a family into doing what they wanted them to do. So my idea after graduation was, well, let me get into county child welfare services because I'm going to change it, right? So I, being a Title IV student, having to do that 2-year payback, I found a county child welfare services, but I wanted to I knew I wanted to work for tribes or to help tribal people, because I got an agenda that I'll tell you about later. So looking around, trying to find out which county would serve this best need to serve tribes, where I found San Diego County, which is home to the most federally recognized tribes in the contiguous United States. Well, and I found out they had an Indian specialty unit, so how do I get in there? So I got hired in 2011. Man, that's a while ago. So I was hired through there, and this is my first time in San Diego. Didn't know about the tribes, didn't know anything. So it was up to me to really be part of the community. Because if I'm gonna work for tribes and tribal families, then it's an investment of your own time. Because tribes are gonna wanna know who you are. Because you're working with their most precious resource. You're working with their children. So they're definitely gonna wanna know who you are. So it was, let me get on in it. Immediately got in touch with Karen, because she's Karen. And you definitely have to let her know who you are. Got in touch with Linda Ruiz, because from Santa Isabel. She's someone that you should meet as well. And just started being part of and introducing myself as somebody who wanted to eliminate my job. I approached County Child Welfare Services as wanting to end my job. Because if I'm able to provide the family with as much tools and resources and education as possible, there should never be a need for them to come back again, right? So, Child Welfare Services for 9 years. Seen a lot of great successes and seen a lot of horrible tragedies. What got me through was knowing that the next case could be better, right? And then the next case, and the next case. And even if they fall, you still help them up. And you still believe they can change. There's a lot of yourself you have to give to this work. There's going to be some sleepless nights, and it's at those moments where you have to lean on somebody else. I'm a very private person. I don't really like to talk about myself, so it's really odd when I have a mic in my hand, all of a sudden words start flowing out. I don't know why. But this is so thank you. This is kind of like my therapy, so hey, thank you very much. You have these relationships with your fellow colleagues. Keep them. There are still folks that I touch base with from my MSW program and undergrad as well. Just checking in because they know exactly what I'm talking about when I'm dealing with a case or something like that. Now I work for the Office of Tribal Affairs, which is under the Office of Equity for the California Department of Social Services. And here's my crew right here. We're a very small but mighty team. We work for, I'll go ahead and click it. You're good. Sorry. All good. Oh, well, that's interesting. Anyway, I'll tell you more about the Office of Tribal Affairs later. So as my role is as a ICWA field liaison. So historically we know that if you know your history, especially California history, there was a time where California was intentionally trying to destroy tribes by taking away their children. And there's a part of that still exists today in laws that don't really make sense. And that's what you have to challenge. You are the ones that are going to be the little viruses within the system, right? They're going to point out, hey, this isn't working out so well. How can we do it better? And you're going to get probably smacked for that too. You're going to get some resistance. My advice would be make sure you're passing some kind of probationary period, and then go ahead and start kicking down doors. Because I kind of learned that the hard way. But that's okay, because we understand that the system is broken. And this system needs people within it that want to change it. There's that idea, like even with what Karen said about the sister story, I find all of those sisters, at each point, they're necessary, right? Even for those that are in there trying to collect them, and then there's some that are in there trying to teach, and then there are those that are trying to stop at the very beginning. Social work, we have each part, we're all going to be involved in there somehow. Which part do you want to be in? In direct practice, I think it's that kind of like, okay, let's teach you, or let's just try to collect you. And then in that policy aspect that some of you are interested in, how do we go to the source of this craziness that is child welfare services? And when I went to this state, I thought that's where I'd find all the answers. I'm like, oh, all right, cool. This is a place where they got it. They understand because they're the ones that are providing the information to the counties. Wow, that was so wrong, because at this state it's even more dysfunctional than it was within the county. And those are the ones that have the oversight authority over the counties. So within the Office of Tribal Affairs, we're trying to move that, trying to change that dial. But there are some good things that have happened. California definitely has a commitment now to tribes. I say now because that hasn't always been the case. When we have Governor Newsom who came in and was like, I apologize. I apologize on behalf of all the governors that came before, because as the first governor who wanted to literally exterminate tribes and was paying bounties in order to kill tribal people, to now where you have a governor who's apologizing, and is not only saying the words, but is also kind of putting things into action. Some of the things into action, well, this, the Executive Order B-1011, that was under Brown's administration, which basically stated, hey, state agencies, you must consult the tribes, because they are the experts. So why haven't we been doing this? A lot of agencies, a lot of state agencies are realizing now that we should have been consulting with tribes this whole time, whether it be with the Bureau of Land Management or Fish and Wildlife. It's now the realization that tribes are the ones who have been here the longest and have that historical knowledge. So now state governments are going, hey, maybe we should consult with the tribes. Same thing with child welfare services. As was stated earlier, they are the experts in their own community. At each time, if you have a tribal case, you should be asking, how can you get the tribe involved? I'll talk about that a little more later, talk about in the Child Welfare Act. Truth and Healing Council was created in order to really take a listen as to what's going on with tribal communities. They created the Governor's Office of Tribal Affairs, and Secretary Christina Snyder has been really active in trying to get out in the community and find out what's really going on. And we also have James Ramos, Assembly member, who is starting the California Indian Education Act, because there is a serious lack of education within our system about tribal people. There's still this fantasy that missions were a good thing, this idea that the gold rush was a good thing. In my daughter's 4th grade class, there was this big picture of a gold miner, and it said "Explore" on it, which was like, wait, what is that teaching our children? Even though this gold miner has a gun on his hip, and it's on land that you can see that, okay, well, how did that person get there? Luckily, my daughter is able to ask these types of questions of her teacher, and it was removed. But now it's going to be coming as part of regular California education with Ramos's bill. This next slide is with the California Truth and Healing Council, which there's a lot of events happening starting on Saturday. Listening sessions as to what does it really feel like? What's going on within state systems and tribal governments about just the idea of just trying to figure out to get more knowledge from tribes. And I want to just point out on Monday, so my tribe, a non-fully recognized tribe, was able to be a part of this Land Back initiative, and we recently got 14 acres of land, which is amazing, and they're having that on Monday, so that's kind of a big to-do. It's like a never heard of before kind of thing. And the next one is coming up in San Diego at Paula on Wednesday, March 15th. So, you need this information, I can send it over to you. So the Office of Tribal Affairs, really quickly, it's really to make sure that tribes are being consulted with and holding other departments within California Department of Social Services accountable to that. So with the respect for tribal sovereignty, integrity, transparency, and being solution focused. We are the agitators within CDSS. We are not liked very often, which is exactly why I love being there. Because we're making people uncomfortable. We're having them ask, how does this affect tribes? And it's kind of revolutionary. And it's kind of still shocking that it's kind of backwards like that. But I'm also trying to like promote OTA because we're having job openings coming up and some of them are remote. So keep your eye out for those. We're starting a new program that is this right here, the Tribal Dependency Representation Program. So historically, the only party within a court hearing that didn't have representation were the tribes, right? So now there's legislation to provide funding to tribes so they could pay for an attorney to be the representative. So it's really exciting, and it's the Office of Tribal Affairs is rolling it out. It's the first program that we've had, so we're kind of nervous, but we'll get it done. Here's some of the facts about it. Each tribe will get $15,000. It's not much really in terms of attorney fees, but it's the start. And hopefully, as we get more involvement, we'll be able to increase that. Okay, so ICWA liaisons, that's myself down there, because I'm the Southern ICWA liaison. Central is Bea Ariano. She was also a San Diego County child welfare worker. When I found out she was moving back home to Fresno, snagged her up and said, hey, come work for us. We don't have a northern yet, so I have to cover the northern as well. But you can see that central region, Bea's got a lot of work to do. So especially, it's interesting how the regions are so different in how they approach the Indian Child Welfare Act. The South, because of the advocacy from right here, from Karen Cole, and from all the tribes, the tribal voice, it's a lot more progressive, I would say. Whereas in the central area, it's kind of like the Wild West, and a lot of people have never even heard of ICWA before. And the North, this is all my individual adjustments, by the way. It's the North, it seems like they know what it is, but they don't want to do it because they don't want to spend their money to do it. So, trying to navigate that with all 58 counties, all doing things differently, it can be a challenge. So, what the main 4 goals of the field liaison is to strengthen relationships. You've heard it right here. That's the most important part, is to strengthen those relationships. Because without relationships, you're not going to have anything. How do you build relationships? You got to be trustworthy, right? So you got to do what you're going to say you're going to do. And if you don't do it, let them know that you're not going to do it. Apologize for it and say, hey, I'm going to do it better next time. A lot of times that I really wanted to pick up this child to go on a visit, but unfortunately another child was blowing up out of a placement that I had to go instead. So now I'm having to choose. So even though I made these plans over here, I had to go this way instead. So just own up to the fact that you've made a mistake. So strengthen relationships, providing technical assistance, we collect and report data, and we provide training. So that's what the job of the field liaison is. In the past year, we've had 633 TA requests, mainly most of them dealing with inquiry. What is inquiry? What's inquiry? That's a major tenet of the Indian Child Welfare Act, and the most cause for ICWA-related appeals. But what does that word inquiry mean? Basically, you're just asking the question. The question being, do you happen to have any Native American ancestry? Because if you do, there are more services available to you. For some reason, that question is not being asked by social workers. So if there's anything that you take away, make sure, no matter who you see, no matter what they look like, no matter how light-skinned or dark-skinned they are, you ask them the question. Because if they say yes, wonderful, now you have an opportunity to work with a sovereign nation. If they say no, then okay, well, who are your people? Tell me where you're coming from. So you're talking about them as a person and not just kind of the referral reason as to why you're now working with them. A show of hands, who actually wants to work for county child welfare services? That's like your goal, that's where you're going. Okay, you kind of have to for the payback, right? Who has to? Yeah, who has to? Maybe not want, who is going to anyway? So that's child welfare services, okay? How about like tribal agencies? Who's going that route? Cool. And how about like community services, like other like nonprofit sector types of things, or policy area? Later on, after you get that experience, right? So, main thing, just ask the question. That's part of the law, that's part of the federal law, you must ask the question, okay? There are tools for you. The ICWA desk reference that the California Department, that the OTA has created for you. You can reach it online. But I also have 2 hard copies for the old school folks who actually like to highlight and circle and stuff. I don't know if y'all are out there, but I only have 2, so let me know if you want them afterwards.
Raffle later.
Yeah, I'll raffle away, exactly. Gotta do a dance. So it basically has all the, there's the job aids in there, there's a lot of great stuff. So, I already let you know about inquiry being one of the major tenets of ICWA. Does anybody know anything else? Judge Thorne just said. So there's inquiry, what else is part of ICWA?
Active efforts.
Thank you, active efforts. Notice, yes. Inquiry notice is usually covered like the same kind of thing. So inquiry notice, active efforts.
Extended family.
Okay, so in regards to if a child is removed and you want to
Trying to connect and place them with extended
place the kid in extended family, very nice. And there's 2 more. It's kind of having that plan B. So you have this one plan A that this is what you're gonna do. We want reunification, but that plan B, and in technical speak, it's called concurrent planning. So it's have that parallel process. And the last part is that qualified expert witness, right? Because that's gonna eliminate bias. Because you're asking the tribe, well, who do you want to have see all this paperwork and see what's going on and provide your information. Because judges make their decision based on what you're going to put in your report. So a lot of what you're going to do, especially county social workers, is documentation. And that was very difficult for me to do. Like, admittingly, that was so hard for me to do. All my court reports were probably late, and I'll have to give Karen a call. I'm so sorry, Karen. I know legally I have to give you the court report 10 days beforehand, but I'll let you know exactly what's going to be in the report, but I can't give it to you in time. There's just a lot of things you got to do. If you got your stuff figured out, you're going to be able to do it. But for some, documentation for me was the most difficult part. But that, we all have an idea like, I'm going to change the system. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to knock down these doors and help these kids. Unfortunately, sometimes you're going to find that you're going to spend most of your time in front of the computer, inputting information. So those passionate ones in you, that's sometimes going to dull your fire. But you got to make sure that when you actually are able to connect with clients and connect with folks that are in a situation that any one of us are just 1 or 2 steps away from feeling as well, because we could all be in their situation as well. You just got to remember that time. Take that time as an educational opportunity. All right, so inquiry notice, that's just some information about it. I really like to talk more about it because it's a huge issue as far as with appeals. All you got to do is ask the question. And make sure you're not only asking the question at the hotline, but also as the investigating worker, also as a jurisdiction disposition worker, also as a continuing worker, also at the back end. Every time you see a family, you should be asking that question. So what are you going to do when you see the family? And what question are you going to ask? Do you happen to have any Native American ancestry? Or are you a member of a federally recognized tribe? Right? So, and then document it.
Explain why you're asking.
Exactly. Explain why you're asking. Because you're asking that question. A lot of folks say, well, they just saying it just because they think they're going to get some money. Or they're just saying this because they heard their grandma was a princess or something like that. Okay, but that is your job to investigate that. So that's a way for you to now, well, can you give me some of your family contacts? So that now, just in case the child does have to come into care, you're already starting the connections with the family. So you don't have to place the child in foster care, you place them in family instead. Active efforts, here's, that's not an exhaustive list, but some examples of what the active efforts are. More than just reasonable efforts. I would challenge you to provide active efforts for every single case that you have, and until an actual ICWA finding is found. Every child is an Indian child unless it's found out otherwise. Unless the court says this is not an Indian child. If you approach every case like that it's an ICWA case, then not only are you kind of preparing yourself to be able to have a better outcome, but you're also, well, sure, you're preparing yourself for a better outcome. The child's gonna have less time and care. If you can involve a tribe in the very first part of the case, the number 163 days?
It's at least 100 days to cut off a child in foster care if the tribe is present at the first hearing.
So get the tribes involved. We want to lessen the kids being in care. We know the system cannot take care of children, right? Unfortunately, there are circumstances where kids do have to come into care. And if that is the case, make sure the tribe's involved. If for some reason the child is not part of the tribe, make sure the family knows about that. Placement you were talking about earlier, the tribe chooses where the child should be placed. So there's foster care placement preferences. So first is a member of the Indian child's family, foster home licensing, Indian foster home, or an institution approved by the tribe. And do we know why, we already said it before though, why this law even exists, the Indian Child Welfare Act? Why is it for tribes and not for other folks? What's the reasoning behind that?
Well, specifically when the Indian boarding school started to be closed, the child welfare system started to be used as the way to channel system into the system and away from their families. And so this is a protective, both culturally and just for the children in general.
Exactly. And it helps that tribes are actually, if there's a political distinction, tribes being sovereign governments, it's political. So if we can convince that to the Supreme Court coming up, because it was currently under attack, then once they realize that, then hopefully things will be okay, but we're kind of concerned. Concurrent planning, plan A, plan B, I'm going through it. Qualified expert witness, we kind of talked about that, eliminates bias. And the main thing that I have on my agenda as to why I'm in child welfare services is the spirit of the law. All right, so this is all the letter of the law, and that's all well and good, but there's also the spirit of the law. And the spirit of the law kicks in for non-federally recognized tribes, as my own, for children who are part of a federally recognized tribe, but maybe their enrollment has been closed, or maybe they don't have the paperwork in order yet. But we know they're tribal, but we can't prove it through paperwork. This is where the spirit comes into play. Okay? So, if we all agree that the gold standard of social work is the Indian Child Welfare Act, do we all agree to that? It is the gold standard of social work. So how can we make sure that as many kids can be covered under that as possible? We'll be following the spirit of the law. Okay? So the data that we have for federally recognized tribes, for sovereign nations with the children in care that the state system holds is atrocious, and we don't have good data. We don't have the accurate numbers of how many Indian children are in care. It's just all over the place. Now, take that for non-federally recognized tribes, it doesn't even exist, right? So kids are being taken, and we have no idea where they're going. So, how are we going to change that? It's your job. Throwing this all on you, right? So, some of the tools to get this done is us, right? We are here to help you. I give you my card. Let me know if anything comes up as you're going into your profession. Any questions you have at all. There is an app. For some reason, I checked this morning. If you have iPhones, it's not connecting right now. But other Samsung phones, it's called Kumeyaay. You can download it, and it gives you all what we just kind of talked about, and some of the resources, especially here down in San Diego County. Desk reference, I'll send you what that is on an email. Reach out to your field liaisons. There's ICWA trainings from CILS, California Indian Legal Services, which folks who are interested in policy, another place to check out. Tribal Star, we kind of talked about. These are all like entities that provide ICWA training that I could send you as well. One thing I want to special attention. You're going to be working for county child welfare agencies who are currently experiencing the most dramatic job loss and rates of turnover, I think, ever right now. So you're going to be given astronomical caseloads. How are you going to deal with that? All right? If you are unable to even provide minimum efforts, not active efforts, make sure you call this hotline, because this is called the Social Work Empowerment Hotline, also known as the Whistleblower Hotline. So you can report concerns regarding child welfare agencies' practices, policies, or procedures. If you're having such a high caseload that you can't even see your kids monthly, that's a safety problem. And the state wants to know about it. The state wants to investigate it. For those who are working for tribes, you have to know that there's an ICWA hotline, right? So it's just started in January, this ICWA hotline. Yes, it was a big deal. So you can make a report regarding ICWA non-compliance. So if you're have a case and you see that they're not following active efforts, they're not doing placement, call the ICWA hotline because they want to do an investigation. Okay. Our contacts for all our staff folks, you guys are all going to receive this PowerPoint, yeah? Okay.
I would love to send them on.
All right, yes, please send it out.
Thank you.
I think, yeah, that's it. Oh yeah, hey, this is part of the Land Act event that we had. It was really cool. So 14 acres right now, but 14 trillion still left to go. Yes.
Having been a supervisor and having dealt with supervisors, when these students go into their jobs at the county and they go with their open hearts and their excited passions, and a supervisor said, there's no time for that, we don't notice the tribe yet, we don't do this. How did these students find their voice in their new position? Got any insights on that?
Well, again, it's
After the probationary.
it's the probationary period. So at first, I think sometimes it's 6 months to a year, right? It's 6 months because you want to pass your probationary period because you got your payback to do, right? So just make sure, because the first 3 months is training. And so everything we talked about today, you're going to be trained to not think about that. Unfortunately, you're going to be trained in how not to get the county sued, is what you're going to be trained for. So you have to realize that there is an agenda that the county has, and there, as a change agent, as somebody who's looking for social justice, as somebody who wants to change this system and help with that, there are some things you got to do differently that some supervisors, managers, or deputy directors don't understand yet. A lot of folks...
There's a former civil rights leader, John Lewis, who was a congressman. He's known for the line, get in good trouble, but people forget the line that went just before that. It's pick your battles wisely, then get in good trouble. So every little thing, you're just going to be a nuisance and nobody's going to pay attention to you. Pick your battles. Don't give up your principles, but be strategic about what you challenge, because that's how the system changes.
Always try to get myself in good trouble. That's what I do. That's what I want to do. That's what I keep on doing.
And that's one of the reasons I like Donald, is he tells me each time I see him what he's done to get in trouble.
Yes.
Or you could just let the tribe know.
Yeah, and that's, your tribe is your biggest advocate here, because they understand, they've seen this institution come and just take away their children. So they're aligned with you and wanting to do the best for their children. So
And they may have the political connections to get past a roadblock that you are having.
The consultation meeting.
When I was going through my troubles with the county, I was always able to go to the tribe. I was always able to go to Tribal Star and kind of work out my issues. And basically, you can't take it on the system alone, but as a collective voice, you definitely can make some great change. So make those connections, make those relationships. And it's exciting. It's also an exciting time to be a social worker right now, because granted, it's with the job market, it's kind of funky, but there's a lot of amazing changes that are going on right now. There's a lot of great legislation that's happening right now that gives you more power to conduct more change and be more positive with it. I know it's 5 after, I don't know. Hopefully I answered your question, Tamara. Yeah?
Y'all have any questions?
I'll give you my cards, if you have any questions, send an email.
More studying to do,
And the first 2 people to raise their hand will get the Equidus reference book. All right, 2 people. All right, thank you.
Take care of yourself.
Appreciate you and
Good job.